minute. I know it's been a minute. I hope all is well. We got some serious stuff going on in the world right now, don't we? Billionaire heiress Eliza Fletcher, billionaire heiress Eliza Fletcher, kidnapped and found killed out there in Memphis, Tennessee. And there's a lot of holes in this story. First of all, my condolences go out to her family. I looked at this at many different angles before I decided to speak on this subject. Uh, the holes that I've been able to realize, I will share. You know, the holes in the story, I'll share with you all. But when I first heard this story, obviously it might be a proxy, something that's the media is utilizing to, incite race war. Um, I've been looking at all of the comments on YouTube in regards to this case, in regards to this unfortunate situation as the news has reported. And the first thing that stuck out to me was that YouTube allowed the comment sections of these news channels to be active and not shut them off. That was troubling to me because not because people were, expressing themselves with freedom of speech, but because most of the speech was obviously being instituted by so-called white folks who were very emotionally charged about what took place because the suspect in this case is an alleged black man who was recently released from prison. Now, it's the year 2022. The alleged suspect, Cleotha Abston, is an individual who has been incarcerated since the age of 11, on and off. And some of his crimes that he's been accused of committing and he's been tried and committing have been quite serious crimes. Um, but nonetheless, he's been in prison since the age of 11 and was recently released back in 2020. He was charged with I wouldn't necessarily say kidnapping because the person who he abducted, I would call it an abduction, was a grown individual that he forced into a trunk of his vehicle back when he was 16 years old, held him hostage in order to get some money uh, withdrawn from the bank. So this is a young brother who, at the time, who was definitely involved with some things that were unsavory, and he was moving in a way that he felt was necessary or deemed necessary for himself to take care of himself. Of course, these actions aren't correct. You know, these actions aren't good for anyone to take amongst themselves. But nonetheless, we're talking about an individual who definitely learns certain of these things throughout his early imprisonment. Okay, if you're familiar with jailing and if you're familiar with prison itself, you'll know that there's a whole another school and train of thought once an individual is incarcerated. And if these individuals are allowed to come out or released from prison, especially at younger ages, they will take the advice of those who they learned from in prison and apply it in a public setting. And that's how most individuals end back up in prison. And in this case, unfortunate case, Cleotha Absent is one of those individuals who was incarcerated early on in life and starting at the age of 11, and then, you know, uh, really grew in the prison system. So for an individual to not have any structure or any sort of help outside of the system once he was released into the general population of society is very troubling to me. But it also lets me know that this young man was more than likely a victim of MK Ultra. Now, what is MK Ultra? For all you don't know, it's basically technique, a governmental technique that was discovered years ago. It's in the form of brainwashing and mind control. Okay, now this is all going to play a part in what we see in this case with Eliza Fletcher. Now, when I looked at this case originally, based off what I saw in the comment section, I noticed that there was a lot of racial tension. Uh, you have a lot of individuals who are so upset, emotionally charged with what took place, that they are beginning to ask for retribution. They're beginning to want to take matters into their own hands, payback, and all of this sort of thing. So I'm trying to question, who are they paying back? Because allegedly, this is one individual who committed this heinous crime, and that individual has been captured by the law and is in prison right now. What I found to be interesting, though, is these individuals in the comment sections on YouTube and social media and through different platforms like Yahoo. Yeah, sounds like the guy has some real mental issues, exactly. But I'm going to get into that. It sounds like he was under MK Ultra. Okay, remember, MK Ultra prime suspects in this sort of uh, situation. They're brainwashed early. MK Ultra is a literal trigger, a mental trigger that's placed in the mind of someone who is going to eventually be used in a heinous crime like this as a scapegoat for something larger. And that's what I want people to focus on. See, when we're emotionally charged and we are looking at the racial aspect of things, we forget the bigger picture. Now, this wasn't a random attack, as many people seem to believe. This was a calculated attack. Okay, and I have some points that I want to bring up, and hopefully these points make some sense to you viewers, and you can remove the emotional attachment to this case and look at it from a very calculated perspective. As I looked at this case, it was very troubling to me. Okay, and I'm going to tell you all why. I wrote down some things, and I want to get straight to it. I got this wind blowing on me right now, and so I want you all to just listen to what I'm saying and utilize this. This should be your strongest muscle, okay? I won't make this live long at all. But these are the points that stuck out to me. You're listening and reading it and reviewing it, look into the reports, open up multiple windows on your phone, your tablet, or your laptop, and compare the reports as they've been given. You'll notice that they are constantly being updated, just like any other false flag event. Okay, now in this situation, I don't believe it's a false flag event. I believe it's deeper than that, and we're going to talk about that. So these are some of the points that stuck out to me as being very fishy. First of all, I got Scott and Lacey Peterson vibes. If any of you all remember back in California, so it looks like we got a little issue. Let's get straight to it. Really sticking out to me, and I found that husband, Richard Fletcher, in this case, he reported Eliza Fletcher missing just 3 hours after she billionaire heiress wife jog alone at 4 a.m. in the morning. So these are going to be some questions that I really want you all to think about. Who has the most to gain in a situation like this, where there's an heiress of great wealth, and he doesn't protect her or run with her, jog with her? I don't know anyone who would be willing to risk that sort of loss. Okay, so where do you think money came into play? She was worth billions after all. He didn't ask for a ransom, did he? Exactly. Robert Smith, you are a wise man. Hold on. Let's look at that comment again by brother Robert Smith. So where do you think money came into play? She was worth billions after all, and he didn't ask for a ransom, did he? No, he didn't. And this is why I believe Cleopa Abson was used as a scapegoat, unfortunately. He has a lengthy record. It would be easy for the public to assume that this individual would be capable of doing these things, but I got some more for you. So, Richard Fletcher reports her missing at 7 a.m. Friday, September 2nd. 3 hours after 4 a.m. routine jog. Once again, who allows their billionaire heiress wife to run alone, especially these days? Second, she's running at the University of Memphis. That's her running route. DNA is allegedly found after slide sandals are located at the scene. Who kidnaps or abducts anyone in slide sandals? So right there, we know that that's one of the prison system's uniforms. A piece of their uniform are slide sandals. Okay, so the media's already trying to paint a picture of the alleged suspect being smart enough and clever enough to abduct a billionaire heiress, but not smart enough or clever enough to put on some boots or some shoes that wouldn't slide off his feet if he was going to commit this crime. And allegedly, these slides have his DNA on them. Now, slides are sandals, and slide sandals are predominantly worn in this case when we're dealing with an inmate or someone who has been released from prison by former prison inmates who want the ease of being able to slide their feet in and out of some shoes that are easy to get in and out of. But who wears those types of footwear when they're about to commit a crime such as this? Okay, and DNA was found on the slides allegedly. Man forces Eliza Fletcher into the passenger seat of a so-called SUV, a GMC Terrain. But Eliza Fletcher doesn't break free, and she's extremely athletic. Okay, and allegedly he commits this crime alone. So how does one man kidnap and abduct an extremely athletic woman who goes on routine jogs daily in front of a university and throws her into the passenger seat of his so-called GMC terrain SUV, but she doesn't run out of the SUV. She doesn't try to break free while he's going around the SUV to the driver's side. So these are holes in this story that simply don't make sense. His phone placed him in the area at the time Fletcher was abducted. I guess we've never heard of Vault 7, have we? Have we heard of Vault 7? Does anyone know what Vault 7 is? Vault 7 is a CIA hacking program. Okay, the CIA has hackers as well. And the CIA has abilities to hack into iOS phones, the Apple phones, and Google phones, and do certain things with these phones behind scenes to make certain things look like what they aren't in reality. I want y'all just to keep this in mind, okay? Next, a witness said Cleotha Abston, was behaving oddly while cleaning out the alleged SUV with floor cleaner. My question is, how does this so-called witness know what the alleged suspect is using to clean out the vehicle? Floor cleaner is very specific. Abston's brother said he saw him cleaning the car, so now it's a car, not an SUV, and washing his clothes in the sink of the house. There's another uh, key word, sink of the house, washing clothes in the sink of the house. When we all are aware that most inmates, they'll want to do what's called housekeeping in prison. And part of that housekeeping has to deal with washing certain clothes in the sink of their cell. Okay? So they're already trying to paint a picture of this alleged former inmate committing these crimes and then still maintaining a certain prison protocol when he's done allegedly committing the crime. Okay. Fletcher's body was found behind a home where the occupant of the home, or excuse me, was found behind a home. Okay. The body was found September 5th on a Monday. Okay. Now, mind you, Monday was Labor Day. Okay. Now, this whole thing took place Labor Day weekend while everybody was out or everybody was at home relaxing. This crime took place. All right. Now, my question is, where were the occupants of the home when this body was found? How come the occupants of the home didn't hear any sound? How come the occupants of the home weren't present? Okay. Now, they could have been out for Labor Day weekend, correct? But Labor Day, most people are back at home getting ready for the work week. Events took place Labor Day weekend, but Eliza Fletcher is 34 years old. September 3rd, Memphis police announced a vehicle of interest was located and they detained its driver for questioning. But I thought that the vehicle was found at the apartment complex of the so-called residence of Cleotha Abston. So which one was it? Was the vehicle found while a driver was driving it, or was it found in the parking lot? Fletcher's family releases a statement read by her uncle, Michael Keeney, who announces a $50,000 reward for her safe return. Now, my question is, where's her husband, Richard Fletcher, and why was he the one to announce the reward for her safe return, and why hasn't he spoken out about this incident? Abston was allegedly arrested Saturday, September 3rd, after investigators found the SUV in a parking lot by his residence, you see? Once again, I thought the driver was detained and questioned on September 3rd. Okay? Now, this individual, once again, was supposed to spend 24 years in prison, being originally sentenced in the year 2020, talking about Cleotha Abston, for more crimes, beginning at the age of 11. But he was released 4 years early in 2020 because his sentence expired. His sentence expired? How did he get out early? Okay? Now, once again, I want to ask some serious critical thinking questions. Who lets a billionaire heiress wife jog alone, especially at 4 a.m. in the morning? Who calls the police and files a missing person report 3 hours after an alleged abduction, but isn't actively searching himself? Who is able to physically kidnap an extremely athletic woman and force her into the passenger side of a vehicle without her escaping or her causing an accident in an effort to escape? What kind of athletic woman allows herself to be kidnapped by a lone assailant and not fight for her freedom? How does DNA located by an alleged crime scene make the apprehended alleged suspect guilty of the crime while all other DNA is disregarded? I know a few were released on due to COVID. A few could have been released due to COVID. Once again, the media has conflicting stories. Are they attempting to incite a race war? Because that's what it seems like to me. MK Ultra is all over this crime. If I was to ascertain this crime myself and look at it carefully, usually in MK Ultra, one of the indicative signs is that an individual is is in prison for almost decades. Okay, many decades. Mandatory release supervision. Okay, now that mandatory release supervision, eh, something happened because this brother was not he was not released under the supervision that would have kept him from committing this crime, right? Also, one thing that stuck out to me, another thing that stuck out to me about MK Ultra is that usually inmates are incarcerated for multiple years starting at an early age. They're brainwashed while in prison. That trigger is placed into their mind, mental mind, through different levels of hypnosis. Then, how do we know it's MK Ultra? Usually, the suspect is found immediately, and there's always evidence tying into that particular individual immediately. Okay, within a day to 3 or 4 days, the suspect is found, as if the police and detectives knew exactly where to look to find the suspect. Once again, I'm getting Scott and Lacey Peterson vibes. How come the husband, Richard Fletcher, has not been questioned? How come the husband, Richard Fletcher, hasn't been identified as someone who has special interest in this case if his wife was to be abducted, killed, or kidnapped or killed? He has the most to gain, and others have the most to gain, seeing that she's a billionaire heiress. Who else has much to gain with her killing or her murder? Now, if you were to ask me, Cleotha Absent is definitely a scapegoat for someone else, okay, or some other entity or some other organization who needed this woman out of the way, okay? Now, could the husband have been involved? Could hiring Cleotha and a crew that has been unnamed to stage a kidnapping and killing of Mrs. Fletcher in order to take over her large inheritance have been one of the primary reasons that this whole crime happened? Okay, so these are things that I want to talk about, that I want to bring forth in this particular live. I didn't want to keep everybody too long on the side because the points that I brought up, I want to use as critical thinking moments. Now, I will leave the comment section open in this live as long as it's respectful and as long as there's critical thinking that takes place throughout the comment section. I'm sure that many individuals might disagree with my stance, or many individuals might agree with my stance. But this is something where we have to look at, y'all. We're living in a time of the wheat and the tares being separated, okay? We have to keep our spiritual armor on at all times. Now, different people say this, different people speak in regards to the spiritual armor, spiritual warfare, the things that are going on today. But oftentimes we forget about spiritual warfare and we get caught up mostly in this racism. Could she have been causing trouble for someone we don't know about? All of these are potential questions and great questions that need to be answered. Okay. Now we don't know who that trouble she was causing for, because we know whenever there's an heiress, that means that she's the next in line or in line to receive a great inheritance, right? So we don't know who was above her and who would have interest in her being murdered or killed in order to receive her share of the inheritance. This is why a case like this cannot just be put on one individual. And in 2022, we should have definitely learned our lesson in regards to how people play dirty, in regards to how family plays dirty, in regards to this world and what we are seeing right now in the land. Okay, that's why I feel so ashamed when I see my white brothers and sisters who are running around here being emotionally charged and willing to take out violence on someone else who didn't have anything to do with this. I gotta ask my black brothers and sisters to keep your head on a swivel these days, because when I read comments from certain individuals who are veterans, certain individuals who have had military service, who are saying dastardly things like we need to pay them back, and them meeting black folks, and what's going on, why are women being attacked? And I'm looking at these kind of statements like this is a very unfortunate situation, but we cannot blanket cover over a whole population, a demographic of individuals or people because of a heinous crime like this. There are so many crimes that go unsolved. There are so many crimes that are committed daily within the demographics of those who commit them, meaning white on white crime, black on black crime. This happens, Asian on Asian crime, this happens. But when those lines are crossed and we get a white on black crime or a black on white crime or Asian on Hispanic crime, we need to be careful about what's going on today, and we don't want to allow ourselves to be racially charged. This is the perfect time to utilize the critical thinking that you've been blessed with in order to deduce a answer that could possibly be the truth. This is why this live is so important, because I see so many narratives except the narratives that cause us to critically think. Now, hopefully, I'm not the only one who is able to move this way and to utilize critical thinking in such a heinous crime as this. Usually, I would call false flag, but because there are billions of dollars at stake, and because this was a white woman who we know that, when we talk about United States demographics and populations, whenever there's a white woman involved with a crime such as this, she and her image will be used. It's always been like this since day one. The white woman's image will be used to incite racial tension and will be used to create violence amongst racial demographics. This has always been the case. This was the case with Emmett Till, who was falsely accused of simply whistling at a white woman. And the white woman who accused him and had him killed is still alive to this day. And she's free. Okay? Now, I'm not saying these things to further incite emotion. What I'm saying is these are true instances that have happened within our history of a country. It's called the United States of America. And we must do our best to remove ourselves from the emotional aspect of this and look at why something like this would take place. Now, like I said, if Cleopa Abson was a suspect in this case, well, he's obviously a suspect, but if he was the one who did this, I don't believe he acted alone. And I don't believe that this was a random crime. Okay? We don't have billionaire women running alone on a day before a Labor Day weekend without her husband there. I see how schedules can get conflicted at times, and the husband doesn't want to run with his wife, certain days because he has to work early, go to work early. But on a weekend where everyone's relaxing and she decides to keep up with her routine, and she's a billionaire heiress, why doesn't she have a special detail with her? Why isn't she wearing a body camera? Why doesn't she have a solution in place for her to cry out for help immediately if something should happen to her? Okay, there's just too many holes in this story for me to accept that this was a random crime and that her family doesn't have a big interest in her murder. Okay, look, this is your brother True Drew tapping in with y'all the only way I know how. Once again, my condolences go out to her true family, and I hope that justice is served, and I hope that the truth is brought to light. I want you all to keep your minds tuned in to this particular case, because I don't think we've heard the last of it, and I think there's going to be many facts that are released within the next week or so. And I think that Cleopa Abson is not going to be the only suspect charged in this case. Okay? So we got to keep an eye on that husband. We got to keep an eye on that uncle, Michael Keeney. And we have to keep an eye on her family. I was going to get into the numbers, like the day, September 2nd through the 6th is when all of this happened. Or the fact that this individual was given a bond by the judge of $510,000, okay, which is very interesting to me. Um, Also, her body was found on the 5th, or excuse me, the 6th of the month. Okay, no, excuse me. Let me see. Her body was found. Her body was found on. Let's see. Let's get it. Her body was found on the 5th, if I'm correct. Yes, her body was actually found on Labor Day itself. While everyone is barbecuing, her body was found. Now, does this make sense to y'all? All right. I want y'all to think about this. It's your brother True Drew tapping in with y'all the only way I know how. Raw, real, and uncut. I thank you always. Listen, Billionaire War popped up in my head. Had to be by her own people. Yeah, I agree. Or another rich person. I totally agree with that. And she's one of the younger heiresses. Okay, so she's one of the younger ones of this family. And it's quite easy to get rid of this this young lady. You too, Brother Robert. You have a good one too, bro. And I thank y'all for tapping in with me. As always, go back and check this live out once it's published and see if there's anything I might have missed. And think about it for yourselves, okay? Read the articles and see what you can deduce yourself. But whatever takes place, don't allow this to incite you to violence. Don't allow this to incite you to do anything wicked. Don't allow this incident to remove you from your position spiritually. Instead, stand guard for your family, stay vigilant, stay blessed, stay vigilant. It's your brother True Drew tapping in with y'all as always. Most High Mama and Papa Will, and I'll be back with another one. But until then, gone.